Into the microphone. From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. We are coming to you live today from the recording of The Jungle Book, where we've got drums and all sorts of stuff, so we apologize about that. But now, broadcasting from the churn, that guy's Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tanchman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
You know, Nick, you missed your calling as an improv singer.
No, I didn't.
I think you could have killed it.
Professional
Second
hockey
city.
playing improv
Improv guy. Yep, just moved to Chicago.
Yep.
Just try to jump onto the Blackhawks. That's the hockey
Yeah,
team.
good. Nailed it.
100% so far. And then Second City. Did I get it? Did I get it all? Did I do all the Chicago references?
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like I got it. I'm looking mostly at Jacob.
Pizza.
Yeah, that was
Big
it.
pizza.
That's what I missed. That was what I missed.
So today on the show we have a guest as well. Why we're talking about hockey? We've
Yes.
got my hockey teammate Brandon is here.
Hello, Brandon.
So
What up, you guys?
we play together on the Monday night and Wednesday night.
Well, he
league.
plays. You also. You're responsible for like the blooper reel, according to
I-
the stories that we heard. Also, if you are not a Patreon, today's the day. Today's the day. Go put that buck in the thing. It's a good one. Today's the day. You get in there and get you some. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So before
If
the
you're
show,
not a Patreon and don't really care for Nick's hockey stories, today's a good day to get on Patreon.
Today's the day. If you're like, I've been waiting for Nick to take his lumps. Today was that day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go put your buck in the system and go get you some Nick getting bashed. It was fantastic. It's 15 minutes of carnage.
yeah. I don't know. I think I came out okay in that.
So I, for one,
What I heard
really
is
like Brandon.
what I heard was that I could shoot.
I feel like you're
That's
still
what I
being
heard.
defensive.
I heard that, and then I heard a lot of evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, from you. Like, in your attempts to defend yourself, just dug a deeper hole. I want to see you on
that's
a
what I
murder
heard.
Trial. Listen, Judge, I didn't kill that guy because I was busy killing everybody else.
It's more like I didn't kill that guy because I
couldn't hit
was
him.
too busy killing that guy. I was too busy trying to kill that guy unsuccessfully.
I didn't kill him. I was too busy trying.
All right.
Missing with my knife.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I'm a good hockey player. So anyway, moving on.
let the record show.
So we've got Brandon in the studio, and I asked Brandon to come in, and he's nice enough to come in. And the reason why I really wanted Brandon to come in was because I was hoping Brandon was going to be able to kind of share his story a little bit. Because just getting to know you over the past however many months we've been playing hockey,
Let's say 5 to 6.
5 to 6 months. Yeah, we've kind of talked a little bit about kind of your past, and you've opened up about some stuff, which I think is really interesting, and it fits perfect with what we do with this show, because our main purpose behind having this show, when Jim and I started this, was we wanted to destigmatize mental health
Yes.
and addiction,
Yes.
because, excuse me, that being kind of our career and that being what we do, one of the biggest battles that we fight is against the public,
Right.
against their false understanding of what mental health actually is and what addiction actually is. So, being able to do a podcast like this and open up the dialogue, getting more people willing to talk about it has helped quite a bit. We've actually had a lot of people write into the show kind of sharing their story. And kind of a similar story to yours, but this is one where like, we can have you right here in the studio.
Yeah,
So,
and one of the things that whenever we started the show, we really knew that there's a lot of value to talking to another human being.
Right.
And like letting them tell their own truth. But at the same time, we have to kind of like walk that line pretty delicately, right? Because we
Yeah.
are licensed clinicians, so we have to make sure that that's always an educational thing. It's not, we're doing therapy. And so, having you on the show, being willing to talk about your own health, talk about your own story, I think is very inspiring, very empowering to a lot of people because, A, if they've never met anybody who maybe has a big, bad diagnosis, something that scares other people, they don't know what to make of it. But when they hear a real human through the radio, they're like, oh, okay. That's what
they
that.
can
Okay,
get a
so
picture. They
yeah,
can get a picture.
that guy checked out, right ahead of me in Albertsons the other day. That's nothing, But the media and Hollywood and all these systems try to make it so much bigger and scarier. Batman's fighting all these people in Arkham Asylum kind of thing, and it's like in real life, they're just your local hockey player, or just like working a job. Like it's just real humans just dealing with their own health. Learning to manage their own symptoms. So thanks so much, Brandon, for coming onto the show. I'm really excited for
Thank
this.
you for having me.
Yeah. So to get started, can you tell us a little bit about about yourself. You know, to kind of talk about your history and how all this started and began.
Yeah. So when I was 19 years old, I had my very first mental breakdown. And I was sent to a mental hospital. And when I was at that mental hospital, I got diagnosed as schizoaffective bipolar disorder.
Oh, okay.
And so basically what was happening was, I guess, a high stressful situation can cause schizophrenia to, like, leak out and happen.
Yes.
And so I was at a church skateboarding on Sunday morning, like I do every single week for the past, like, 3 months. And one day, some guy went into the church and said, some kid's out there skateboarding. And I was like, you know, shut the fuck up. I skateboard here every fucking Sunday.
Right.
And so some guys come out and they start chasing me on my skateboard. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I skate here every single Sunday. And then they ended up tackling me down, throwing me down, almost breaking my arm. Call the cops. Cops sent me to the mental hospital. So that was like with the situation, that stressful situation that caused it to trigger. And so when I was diagnosed as bipolar schizoaffective, I started hearing voices. I was hallucinating. And, like, if I'm looking at you, like I'm looking at you right now, Nick, like, your face would start to, like, morph.
Yep.
And it would morph into a demon. Every single time, every single person's face I looked at would just morph into a demon.
Yeah.
And they tried putting me on so many medications. I can't remember every single one that I have been on, but I know a few were lithium, Risperdal, Prolixin, Abilify. That's some of the ones I can remember.
Sure.
But this is through a period from when I was 19 to 24. I was in and out of a mental hospital for 4 years. Like, I'd be there for 30 days. I'd get out for a day. And then right back into the mental hospital. Because I would have a breakdown, you know, like, almost instantly.
So when you say breakdown, what you're talking about is, like, having those hallucinations, hearing the voices.
Yeah.
And when you were in the hospital, did they stabilize?
No. When I was in the hospital, that's, like, to me, so one thing that I was really focused on when I was trying to get healthy, get right or whatever, was finding God, finding heaven. Like, I wanted to go to heaven more than anything. But all I could think is negative thoughts, and I'm hearing these voices that are constantly yelling at me, screaming at me, saying the most hateful, most insecure shit that, like, I guess I think of in my subconscious, like, to myself. And so when that happened, I'd be in the hospital for a period of 30 days, and during those 30 days, I'm just constantly hearing this stuff, and it literally drove me so crazy that there was a point where I tried ripping my own eye out. No, I couldn't do it. Do it. It's too hard. It's too fucking hard. But I, like, just to kill myself. And then there was another point where I thought that, because we had smoke breaks during the mental hospital, that if I just burnt myself with a cig, for some reason I'd get out of the hospital. I have no clue why, but I thought that, and I got a scar right there, if you guys can see.
Oh, yeah.
And then, what was another thing? I got, like, one of those plastic knives. I started cutting myself.
Sure.
I was just doing whatever I could to try to get out of the hospital, find my way to God, and it was like I was in my own personal hell.
Yeah.
That's just the way to describe it, is my own personal hell. Like, I've been to hell. I know what it is like.
Right.
It is truly agonizing 24/7. It does not end.
So what was it like? I mean, do you remember, like, the very first time that you started experiencing these symptoms? And what was that like for you?
The very first time.
Was it at the skate situation? You were skating and then it was at the hospital you started having those symptoms?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I guess, well, my mom said, like, maybe a week or two before the skateboard incident happened, my mom was saying that I was acting really weird and being different, not like my normal self.
Right.
I don't really remember that well, and I can't ask my mom.
Right.
But,
So it was around that time, and you said that the symptoms that started happening that you became aware of were visual hallucinations. So if you were looking at another human, all of a sudden they would morph and they would appear to be something demonic and scary.
Yes.
Would it happen when you looked at yourself in the mirror? Do you remember that?
It didn't happen if I looked at myself in the mirror.
Okay, so it had to do with others.
Yeah.
And then the voices. And so you'd hear negative voices.
It wouldn't be negative voices. It'd be voices of people I know, like my mom, my brother, my
thinking
sister.
they're in the house or in the room, and you're looking around going, "What?"
No, I'm not even thinking that they're in the room because I know they're not in the room.
Right,
but I'm just
them.
hearing them. It's like they're literally so loud that they're like screaming in your ear.
Yeah.
You know.
And you said it was negative content. They would say very negative
it's just
things.
horrible shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just your subconscious acting. Well, this is what I believe it is. Your subconscious acting on your worst insecurities and fears.
Oh, they say terrible things.
And they just say the worst things. Yeah.
So you'd hear things, you'd see things, and then the other thing I think I'm hearing too is you'd feel kind of that disconnection to the rest of reality. Like you'd draw big conclusions that, looking back, didn't make sense. Like, if I burn myself with a cigarette, then I will be able to leave. Or if this happens, then that. And looking back, you're like, well, obviously that didn't make any sense. But at the time, it felt true.
Yeah, at the time it did feel true. It felt like it would make sense. Just, I don't know why, but at the time it felt burning myself with a cigarette would get me out.
Right. Or
because I thought I was
my eye,
like, I thought the mental hospital itself was its own hell in itself.
Right.
And I thought burning myself would get me out.
Right, like struggling to even know where you're at.
Yeah.
And I think you said that this began around 19 years old.
Yeah.
And when you think about how long that season of time lasted, where it was like spending 30 days at a time in a hospital, it sounded like you described it up until your early 20s, mid-20s?
24 is when I actually got onto a medication called Prolixin.
Yeah.
And it stabilized me, normalized me.
That's when it started to work.
But it had a horrible side effect, though. It was because of the fact that they put me on 50 milligrams of Prolixin. Mm-hmm. It caused my legs to...
Yeah, irritable leg syndrome.
Yeah. And they would shake so much that I'd be in agonizing pain.
I see.
So it was either be in agonizing pain or go back to the mental health.
Right.
So
you had to make that choice.
I chose, being the pain. Yeah. And I was on that for 2 years.
Okay.
Before they finally lowered the dose.
Okay. And found a happy medium.
Yeah.
That took away the symptoms. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you mentioned, Brandon, I think is really interesting too, and I really want to make sure that we get this out here early. There's a lot of folks who have written in going through some of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you're at the beginning of this journey, we're meeting a guy who's got it mostly to a place where he can maintenance himself, right? He can manage, he can live his own life, he can play hockey, he can do what he wants to do. But when people are first going through that, they're very discouraged because they try different medicines and they don't work.
Right.
And as you just described, you have to go through kind of like a trial process of different
feels
herbs
like
and
an
spices.
eternity. Like that feels like
now 5 years is pretty long.
Separate lifetime.
Yeah.
Like it felt like an entire lifetime had passed
until you found the right mix of herbs and spices. We call it the signature blend that worked for you. So it sounds like today you take about one medicine.
Yeah, I just take a monthly injection.
Okay.
And I'm good.
Oh, wow. There you go. What a great management cycle now. Yeah. And so, I mean, ballpark, how old are you now?
I'm 28. I'll be 29 in October.
Great. So it's been about 5 years of feeling like you managed the symptoms.
24, 20. Yeah.
So question about what today is like for you. Do you still bump into the symptoms and now you just have the tools to walk over them? Or
I still have issues. Like every now and then, like voices will start coming into my head.
Yes.
And then I don't know why, but I'll just I guess I'll call it an episode where I just get extremely paranoid to where I feel like I'm back in the mental hospital.
Yes.
And what I was feeling in the mental hospital is what I'll feel but it lasts for about an hour and I've learned how to cope with it.
Okay.
And
very good.
Yeah, it's been helpful.
And that was going to be one of my questions too, is I think that this is one of those scenarios where there's some mental health issues that we deal with primarily with pharmaceuticals. Then there's others that there's really no pharmaceutical issue with it. It's kind of more of a behavioral thing that we have to treat. This is kind of a mixture of both. So you've got behavioral coping skills that you will use or mental coping skills that you'll use. What are some that you've found that have been very helpful for you?
Playing hockey.
Playing hockey.
Playing hockey.
Just staying active.
Yeah, staying active. My girlfriend.
Okay.
Right.
My dad, and I have a great family. that is a great support system. So through all that, it's caused me to lift up. But one thing that was horrible that did happen. So 24, I was about to be 25. That's when I got the correct medication, started normalizing. Then 25 hit. My mom died.
Wow.
Biggest support you could have.
Right.
You know, everything, your biggest lifeline. That almost caused me to relapse, go back into the mental hospital. And then that's when I started doing meth, drinking, heroin, all this. And then I feel so guilty about saying this, but my mom, she left me an inheritance. Me, my brother, and my sister. And my family told me, you're not allowed to get that inheritance as long as you're on drugs.
Right.
And so my mom dying was kind of a catalyst into quitting drugs. And so when I quit, I received a large inheritance, and I was able to buy myself my own home. I feel guilty saying that because, like, my mom dying kind of, like, jumped me up with life.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't think... I mean, that's one way of looking at it. I mean, the other way of looking at it, as you said, was a catalyst, right? And, I mean, that's true through all of our lives, where usually the thing that motivates us into action, into doing something positive, it's almost always something negative.
True.
Like, it's a heart attack that gets somebody active and exercising, eating healthy. Or it's, you know, the death of a loved one that motivates people to be more respectful of the other people in their life, you know? It's like one of those things where it always seems to be that, like, when positive things happen, they don't necessarily change us. But when negative things happen, it's kind of
that's
a call
when
to action.
Biggest growth happens.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things, Brandon, that you were mentioning was, it sounded like, and I want to clarify something, was the drug use something that was happening throughout your early 20s, or is it something that really only began at 24, 25?
Okay, so from like 20 to 23, I would drink and I'd smoke weed. But when I was 24, and mind you, I was in the mental hospital in a period for 4 years. I had no friends.
Yeah.
And the first friends I found were drug addicts, which was my neighbor who lived next door. He got me into meth, coke, all that shit.
So the reason I had asked, because a lot of folks that have some form of schizophrenia will self-medicate, we call it. And so, like, they're so frustrated, they want relief. And if you can give them a medicine that will make it stop, great. But it just often isn't the case. And so they might smoke pot to slow themselves down, or they might use
I would
meth.
highly suggest never smoking marijuana if you have a mental illness.
Yeah.
I would highly suggest, because all it will do is cause you anxiety, stress, paranoia.
It's not a medicine.
It isn't a medicine.
Yeah.
Like, all those people who say, weed is for everybody, weed is great, it's for everyone, it helps you.
Right.
If
They
you have
definitely
mental illness,
oversell it.
no.
Yeah.
No.
And the meth, it sounds like the same thing. You got caught up in it. It was, you know, seeking friendship, but it only made things worse.
It made things way worse.
Yeah.
But when my mom passed away, it drove me like, okay, I want to get my life together.
Right.
And...
yeah.
And that's a common story. Like, we've had a bunch of people when we were working at the rehab together. We've had a bunch of people that were kind of went through an experience like that, where it's like, you know, it was fun, it was all party and everything, and then something bad, something tragic happens, and they're like, okay, I need to get my life together. Like, it's fun time's over. I got to pull it together.
Well, another way you might look at it is that was your mom's gift, was a better life.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, like, okay, so... one of my ex-girlfriends, her mom passed away, you know, maybe like a year or two after mine. And I told her, or I asked her, I was like, don't you just feel like she's still with you, though? And she said the strangest thing to me that, like, I didn't understand, because she said, no, it just feels like she's gone. Like, I'm, like, she's out of my life. But to me, I still feel like I have my mom. Like, I feel like I can still call her. And it's been 3 years. It's weird. It's like, I feel like my mom hasn't gone away.
Yeah, you still feel that mental presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you mentioned that event kind of comes at the end of that really rough season of like 4 or 5 years where it's in and out of the hospital. Yeah, I'm drinking too much. Yeah, I'm smoking pot. And yeah, I'm not mentally well. And so eventually, all around in the same couple of year span, the medicines finally line up. We finally get to the right one.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to get out of the programs and starting to be okay on our own for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Mom's situation brings an end to the drug abuse. Now we're starting to think about an inheritance. And then even whenever you receive that inheritance, you used it in a very wise way.
Yeah.
You bought a home with it.
Yeah. And I bought a truck.
Yeah.
And I bought myself a few nice things,
Sure.
but things that I use every single day. A
Right.
computer,
Right.
a TV,
Really practical
and
lifestyle
a PS4.
things. Of course. These
Things
are,
I use
practical.
Things I use every day.
yeah, the things that matter. But for the big parts, of course, they're big
Yeah.
things. So after leaving the hospital situation, now continuing through these years in the back half of your 20s, and adjusting out into the real world, because when you started getting what we call institutionalized, you were just a kid. 19 years old. And now you kind of almost teleport into reality again, like you described it as a season that almost feels like it was not my life. Like that was like a whole different life. And now here I am back in the real world, and you almost have to catch up and start living again in this more meaningful way. And one of the things Nick had asked you was, how are you coping with that in the daily life? Because the symptoms don't just completely go away. They're for the most part gone, I hear you saying. Every once in a while, some audio stuff. What about that general sense of paranoia or anxiety? Is that something that you still battle with?
I cope with it.
You cope with it.
It is an everyday thing.
Okay.
But when you learn how to cope with it, you know what you do. Like when you're having an episode, I'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother you as much.
Right.
Right.
Because you're aware this isn't real.
Like, I don't know if Nick's ever noticed, but when I have an episode where I'm playing a hockey game, I'll be really, really quiet. That's when you can tell I'm having an episode, is when I am quiet.
I see.
Oh, I've never noticed.
See? That's how well I'm coping with it.
Nick's like, wow, he's got the eye of the tiger.
Yeah.
He's ready to go.
I just assume you're really focused on winning that game.
Well, that is true, too. I am focused on winning, but like I'll get really quiet and I'll kind of be like...
So when you describe an episode that you're experiencing that you'll choose to be quiet during, what does that episode feel like? Are you hearing, seeing things, or is it more the general sense of discomfort?
It's more a feeling
Yeah.
like I was back in the mental hospital when I
Right.
was feeling all those horrible things.
Yes.
That's what it kind of feels like
Yes.
when I'm just having an episode. And just like, fuck, man, this
Flood
this
of
is over.
emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
Feeling unsafe, maybe?
It's not really unsafe. It's, like, again, it's weird talking about it, but it's like I'm going back to hell.
Right.
It's like
Right.
going right back to hell.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes people tell us that they use a lot of self-talk in those moments, even if it's in their own mind or in their own voice. They might talk themselves through it. Is that something that you've practiced doing?
And that is something I've practiced doing. But when I'm in those episodes,
Yeah,
everything that like I think is mainly negative.
I see.
So it's hard, but I do it where I talk positively to myself, like, this is gonna end. It only lasts for about 30 minutes to an hour.
I see.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and that I think is really important because I hear a lot of folks do that, especially talking about not just with schizophrenia, but also anxiety or like panic attacks. If they have that ability to say to understand that there's a finish line, that like this is a temporary feeling, and that all I have to do, I don't have to beat this. All I have to do is just
Let it pass.
Let it pass. I just have to.
It'll
I
pass
have to
through
do
you.
nothing except just sit and let it pass, and I know that it's going to end.
Yeah.
It also instills a lot
But
of
that's like also just in life in general, because
sure.
everything's gonna end in some part in life.
Let it
Nothing's
pass.
forever.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and part of that I think it helps boost confidence.
Yeah.
Like it gives you at least a little sense of control over something that you feel like you have no control over.
True. And I see your point now that, I can see where hockey is really a relief in some ways, because it's like, okay, I'm in this spinning mentality. Focus on the puck.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Like
Just watch the
all I
puck
have to
god.
do is focus on the puck and do the
Right.
plays,
That's it.
and it does help.
Right.
But when I'm on the bench though, and it's just like,
Yeah, that's whenever you're in your own head. And it's
Yeah,
like, I
that's
need
when
to
you're
get
in
out
your own
there.
head.
See, that's why you take like 7-minute shifts.
Yeah. Or you're like, they're fine. Just let me keep going, man. Like, God, he's playing like an animal out there. Yeah, he's pretty focused. So it sounds like in a lot of ways here at this season of life, yes, you've learned how to cope. Yes, you've overcome it. Knock on wood, right? It's one day at a time.
Right.
We have good days, we have bad days. You mentioned that relationships have been a big part of how you've gotten through it.
Yeah.
It sounded like earlier you mentioned spirituality or something to that effect that at that time meant a lot to you. I want to ask this. One of the things we talk a lot about on the show is how the public generally doesn't understand what some of these words mean and how they overreact to them or like act really frightened of them or just don't generally understand it. Being somebody who lives with one of those words, in this case schizoaffective or bipolar or psychotic symptoms or whatever it is that you mostly identify with, how is that for you living that way for the last 4 or 5 years, out healthy, but also now hearing the media and hearing people talk about this, or anytime you've chosen to share it? What's the experience been like as somebody who lives with this?
To me, I just feel like I'm a completely normal guy.
Sure.
Like, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with me. But the things that are wrong with me, it's just like it's become a daily routine type of
managed.
thing. Yeah, and it's managed.
Right.
And then those words, I understand how they can sound scary, but I guess it is case by case with who it affects.
Yes.
Like me, I was never violent or anything. I was more of a, what would you call it? Like, would you hurt yourself?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was more a danger to myself.
Right.
I was more of a danger to myself. And,
on that note, real quick, I just want to make this point just as a public service announcement. There is a misunderstanding in the general media that, especially with schizophrenia or psychotic symptoms, that this person is now going to become the Joker from Batman, and they're going to mastermind the collapse of a society. And you've been there. Hell no, I couldn't tie my shoes. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't sneaking up on anybody.
Yeah.
Like going through
Exactly.
the air vents of the hospital, like, Bruce Willis. Like, no, man, I couldn't, like, pour milk on my cereal at that moment. Like, I was more likely to hurt myself than
Yeah.
anybody else.
yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people misunderstand.
Yeah, and this is one thing. Actually, our friends over at Gruntwork Podcast just tweeted us this week, and they kind of asked that same question about like stigma in Hollywood with schizophrenia.
Yes.
And this has been my soapbox for years, and people have heard me say this on the show too. That like that has always been my biggest frustration is that we seem to be slow changing that stigma.
Yes.
Because it made for great movies back in the day when no one understood what it was, or even mental health, or
Right.
To make a Hollywood blockbuster or a thriller, you have to have something that no one understands, so that way you can turn it into anything you
mental
want
illness.
it to be.
Yeah.
And so the downside to that now is that we've got people who have that diagnosis or are living with those symptoms, but then people just associate that with a Hollywood thing.
Oh yeah.
What do you think is one of your? Are there any stigma, anything that you've come across that just kind of bother you, or things that you wish the average person in public knew about mental health?
When people say, like, okay, I've learned to like laugh it off and joke around about it now.
Right.
But it's when people say he's schizophrenic, he's crazy, he's insane. Like, it's not true. It's not true. You aren't crazy. You're not insane. It's a mental illness. I wish there was a lighter term you could say than illness. But when you are properly, I'll say medicinalized instead of medicated, because medicated also sounds like you're like a zombie,
Yeah.
When you're properly medicinalized, you're I'm normal. Like, there's nothing wrong with me,
Right.
I'm medicinalized.
Yeah.
Right.
There was never any moment in meeting you that I thought that you would have had any kind of mental illness or anything.
Right. That's because I'm normal now, but when I was in the mental hospital, if you'd have just seen me, it's like when you go to a 7-Eleven and you just see that drug addict and you just instantly know that's a crackhead.
Yeah.
You would have saw me and been like, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that is the accurate thing about this. And we were talking about this on the show the other day, that I think that part of the zombie apocalypse genre actually borrows from people's fear of the homeless schizophrenic man, who they see talking to himself under the streetlight, and is he going to bite me? That kind of thing. And so but you're right. Yes, somebody who's untreated, who's not well, you can tell they're not well.
Exactly.
But your point is still valid. This is just another illness, guys. The brain is just an organ in the body like the kidneys or the liver, right?
Yes.
You can also tell when somebody's jaundice.
Right. I was just going to say the same thing.
You can tell when they're not well, right?
Yeah,
and you can tell when somebody's physically ill or if they are dealing with mental illness. But you're right, Brandon, that even using that phrase a lot, mental illness or medication or treatment, a lot of people still feel a sting to that word. Where they kind of recoil, and they're like, And like you said, oh, they're schizophrenic, they're scary, they're crazy.
Yeah.
Or you'll turn on the news and the weatherman will be like, wow, this weather sure is schizophrenic. And you're like, hey, go to hell. I am not the weather.
It's interesting. I kind of want to get your take on this too, Jim, because I've always... in the past, I would say probably 3 years, I've really focused on saying mental health
Versus
over mental illness because I feel like mental illness draws a line.
It does.
Like you're on that side of the line versus this side. Whereas in reality, mental health is a continuum.
Yes.
It's all on one long scale. So mental health covers everything, and it doesn't divide people up on what is good.
I agree.
And what's bad.
Brandon, it sounds like for you
too.
that's a more welcome term.
Yeah.
There's another therapist that has a podcast that we've worked with before. His name's Jake, and he uses the phrase mental wellness, and he wants to affirm
mental wellness
right?
is
Instead
also
of
a good one.
illness, health, he goes for wellness, right, in a proactive sense. I can see the value of all of it. I've been in a camp for a while of trying to get mental health professionals to identify themselves and identify our discipline as medical instead of clinical or mental health. And the reason why is because if you talk about getting a physical injury or physical illness, nobody judges that.
Right.
But when we silo off mental stuff, people go, that's different, that's special.
They instantly...
No, it's just the hospital, man.
They instantly,
we all just walk in and get help.
Group that in with crazy.
And I don't want that,
Yeah.
right? Nobody does that.
Yeah. Like,
And that's
I've learned to get over it. It doesn't bother me. And you
For
can say that to me.
Right.
But I do feel for the other people who out there who have
Right.
it that probably still don't.
Yes.
And, it's not fair to them. I guess this could be like PC way of saying stuff. But, I mean,
No, words have power.
Yeah, true.
And then you think about where you were at back in your more weak moments.
that would
when
have
you weren't
that destroyed me. That would have
Right.
destroyed me.
Here you are starting to get those first little bits of progress. People are telling you, hey, don't feel shame. We're going to work on this. And you're like, yeah, maybe we can. And then if somebody just comes over and levels you with some hard word or some description that you're like, oh my gosh, you guys see me as a freak. You see me as I'm broken. Well, that could make you give up and cost you your life.
Yeah.
When
I agree
you
with that.
deserve better than that. And so as a society, we have to think differently about, but you said that word crazy. And that's the thing I think that schizophrenia has to deal with more than almost anybody else. Bipolar and schizophrenia, I think, are the ones that people use the word crazy. And they'll say, oh, well, they were crazy. And, it's just an unhelpful way to describe it, which is why I'm okay with diagnosis, because there's no shame in science. Like, let's use a real word. What is schizophrenia? It's not whatever the movies taught you. It's Brandon. He's a normal dude. He's on your hockey team. Don't be scared of it. But the only way that we can beat those words and beat the image that people have of them is introducing them to the human. We are not our illness. We are a human being with a name and a story and, friendships and life and a PS4. That's real.
4K HDR.
Yes, and this is the only way that we beat it. And so, Brandon, one question I want to make sure that we get onto the air is, if there's somebody here that's listening to you right now, and they are you, but in those earlier phases, and this is one of those moments of clarity where they can think clear enough to listen to this, and they're hearing you, and boy, they turned up the volume as soon as they heard the beginning of this interview. What is something you want them to hear and to do for themselves? What is some encouragement you might have for them so that they can get help and move forward?
Okay, even though you might not be able to trust anybody right now, even your own loved ones, they aren't trying to hurt you. They aren't trying to do you wrong. They want what's in your best interest. Just, I know this is a hard term to say, but it's like you have to suck it up go through the hell to get to the golden side of the road. That was bad terminology.
No, I follow your logic. But
Yeah.
one of the things I heard you noting in there was, I know you're scared, and I know you don't trust anybody right now. And that's such a powerful thing, because that's something that Nick and I wouldn't have thought to throw out there. But something that you, having lived through this, you know where their head's at right now.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever they're going through, you know that one of the top things on their mind is they don't trust anybody.
That is the one thing. Like, when I was in the mental hospital, I was so indecisive. I couldn't even, like, someone offered me a glass of water, and I could not trust a single thing anybody said.
Right.
That I couldn't even say yes or no to a glass of water.
Right.
That's how indecisive I was.
Yes.
And if you are in the same boat as me, I am not trying to do you wrong. I am saying I've been there. Just do the best you can to follow what your doctors are saying. I know you most likely don't trust your doctors, because I hated my doctors.
Right.
They treated me like shit when I was in the mental hospital. But I went through a period of 4 years. I finally got into a medication, or an injection, to be honest, that stabilized me. And now I am living a completely happy, normal life. And it is possible for you too, if you suck it up, stick through it, and do your best to trust your loved ones, because they aren't trying to do you wrong.
Right. That's good. And I can imagine how scary that situation must be. You know, when you're in an environment like that where you can't predict what's going to happen next.
I felt like I was in jail.
Yeah.
I had my freedom stripped from me. I couldn't go out, get a job, make money. I wasn't able to do shit for 4 years.
Yeah.
Right.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
It is, and it's scary, but, you know, congratulations that you pushed through it, and, you know, you took your own advice. At some point, you surrendered, and you actually went with what they were telling you, which is the biggest, and that's one of the things I found, that every unique thing that we treat has its own bag of, you know, positives and negatives, right? Things that help you and things that are less helpful. The challenge, I think, as you just said, Brandon, that I usually face when I'm dealing with schizophrenia is earning the trust. Because there's so much
that
paranoia.
would be very, very, very hard thing to do.
It's very hard.
I imagine that. No, I know how hard that is to gain
hard.
someone's trust.
Yeah, because there's nothing you can say that in the back of their mind they might not reconstruct as part of a conspiracy, or, you know, you're out to get them.
It's like, okay, the way to describe it is, they're a wild animal in the forest, and you're trying to walk up and pet it like a deer.
Interesting.
The closer you get, the more scared it gets. And if you make a sudden movement, they're going to freak out and just dash off.
Right.
That's how hard it is. No, it's even harder than that.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
To try to trust somebody.
Yeah, and I think that this goes along with something you pointed out earlier, is that for family and friends, it's so hard to help your loved one. Because the more you get close to them and try to comfort them or be near them or get them help, they are going to run away. And oftentimes, literally, they will run out of the house and live in the streets,
Yes.
you know, because they're so afraid.
And another thing I can say is, even though I didn't trust my family at this time during the 4 years, they would continually visit me. Even though I didn't trust them and I kind of hated them at that time, it still felt good knowing that there was someone familiar around.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've
so
had
just-
somebody write in about that, where
Yeah.
their sister was in the hospital for the same thing, and they went to visit their sister, and they were really brokenhearted that their sister refused to see them and basically accused them of being part of like a conspiracy to hurt them.
I can.
But then later, when she got well and came out of the hospital, the sister did tell the family member, "Thank you so much for coming to see me. Even though I treated you terribly, even though I didn't trust you, it meant a lot." to
Yeah,
know that
it
you were
really
there."
does mean a lot. Just having that familiar person come up to you, and even at the time, like, they're gonna hate you for it, but when they finally do eventually get well, they you don't realize that is a huge help, because it's like you're in prison, you can't do shit, there's nothing you can do, but you get that visitor that comes once every day, once every 2 days, you know.
Yeah.
It's like some sort of light at the end of the tunnel,
Right.
Yeah.
that there is a chance of something good going to happen.
Yeah,
Wow.
kind of gets you by.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it gets you by. It gets you
Yeah.
by.
Wow.
Well said, man.
Well, thank you, Brandon. Thank you
Yes.
for coming on, sharing your story.
Thank you. I had a great time.
I just think, again, to humanize these situations is really the heart and soul of what we were always up to. And to really have a real human who's just sitting here, just chilling guy, wearing his Golden Knights pants, rocking his NHL hat. He's just chill, and this is the thing people need to hear. If you're out there and there's a loved one in your life, or even you yourself, who's going through some things that sound like things Brandon described, maybe you're seeing paranoia where they're being very distrustful, they're running away from you, isolating, maybe they're not acting in ways that feel like make sense in their reality, or maybe they're telling you that they see things that aren't there, hear things that aren't there, things like that. If you want to learn more about what schizophrenia really is, or the other things that are kind of on the schizophrenic spectrum, you can go to Mental Health America. I think it's just mentalhealthamerica.net. And there's great resources there for learning. They're put in really simple language. If you're looking to meet other people like Brandon, maybe you are going through this, or your loved one, and you could draw strength and advice and teaching from sitting with somebody like Brandon and somebody who's lived this in the first person way, go to the NAMI, N-A-M-I, the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
My mom, she actually took me to NAMI.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was very
You
helpful.
got to meet other humans.
I got to meet other guys.
that are doing better.
Yeah.
And they gave you some coaching.
Yeah.
And they walked you through it. NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI.org, N-A-M-I. Look for support groups in your area. They have them in all 50 states and all the major metropolitan cities, and in rural areas too. There's phone groups that meet. But your loved one can sit with somebody just like Brandon did, and sit with somebody who's going through the exact same thing. They're not a doctor. You don't have to worry that they're out to medicate you. They're just there to be human with you. NAMI.org is a great place to go to.
Very good.
The crazy thing about this, I mean, on top of dealing with all of this stuff and dealing with it really successfully, I mean, you have such a kind heart and such a kind soul to you that you're even willing to carry Nick's lazy ass up and down the ice every time you get out there and play
It
hockey.
takes a special person.
I mean, that's
I think what we've really realized, it's not just deep compassion. It's Brandon does it selfishly because he's actually helping himself. So he's like, okay, no other person would deal with this. I'm going to do it because it's good for me.
Come on, Nick's a good teammate.
I can't accept a pass, but I can pass.
Yeah.
So I'm all right.
Yeah, let's not go back down this rabbit trail of you defending your honor, Nick. Brandon, thank you so much for being on the show with us, man. Thank you for telling your truth.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah. All right. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will discuss new job anxiety. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Their Producer sponsor is Smitty Scoop. Smitty Scoop, also known as Scooptesius, was a noted French philosopher, mathematician, and scientist, dubbed the founder of modern philosophy and the father of modern mathematics. Descartes was one of the key thinkers of the scientific revolution in the Western world. Oh, was that Scooptesius?
Yeah.
Nice. If you'd like to join Descartes, and I'm sure Smitty would not decline being called Descartes from now on, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up to make the show possible. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next question is about new job anxiety.
So, Brandon, feel free to just jump along in with us. Okay. Anything you have to add, just commentary, whatever, dude. We're a pretty informal show, so you're already in the room, you're on the mic, join us. All right, this question comes in anonymously, and it is titled New Job Anxiety. Hi, gents. I have been a licensed massage therapist for 14 years. I am starting a new job in a manufacturing company on Monday in a complete job switch. I'm nervous about this, since this is not something I have ever done before. Is there a constructive way that I can manage my nerves? Thanks, Anonymous.
Okay.
That's a good question.
So one of the things that I was thinking of, one of the things that we've talked about a lot on this show.
Massage therapy?
Yeah.
Also, a great podcast.
As...
Welcome to Massage... Ah, God, that's great. Yeah. It's all in the lower back. Thank you.
You know what? We should stop
just
doing
an
this.
hour of groaning.
Let's stop this podcast and start that one.
I love it.
I think that would be better.
That'd be a much better
We'd
podcast.
probably be a lot more effective.
Dibs on going first.
All right. No, but we've talked a lot on the podcast about cognitive reframing. So that's one thing that I would start with. So for those of you who are new to this, cognitive reframing essentially is when you are taking a situation, you're taking your thoughts, and you are going to reframe them. You're going to repackage them into something that's going to be more productive. So identifying like negative thoughts in this situation might be something like, I only know how to do one thing. What am I doing? This is going to be terrible. This is going to be a disaster. Those are going to be unhelpful thoughts, unproductive. So being able to reframe those thoughts into, this is exciting. I'm getting to do something new. I get to try a different thing, and understanding there's going to be difficulties, but you're reframing it into something positive.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we talk about that a lot, like just switching the mentality, right? Because like even saying like I have to versus I get to, like, oh no, I have to start a new job. I have to do this whole new thing. Switching that over to, oh my gosh, I get to work in a bigger environment with lots of interesting people. I get to learn a new trade. I get to, fire off new neurons and have a new adventure and all these new things. So, like, finding the positive in it, I think, is huge for your anxiety. And the other thing, Nick, that I want to echo and come along beside you on, not predicting negative things. I think in our heads, sometimes we can, like, start doing this forecasting thing where we're like, oh, I know it's going to turn out bad. I know they're not going to like me. I know I'm not going to be good at this. I know I'm not going to like the work hours. I know I'm going to have to work on Christmas, things like that. And you just want to be really careful because, like, if you can predict the future, the job you should be doing is playing poker at the Bellagio.
Right.
But if you can't, if you're not currently, running up at the Bellagio and taking all their money, you need to accept that you can't predict the future. And so you got to come to the now, and you got to focus on today, being mindful of the present, and doing the next right thing. So that's, I think a big deal. Brandon, in your life, you've had to go through huge transitions. That's what this person's talking about. Transitioning from one lifestyle into another lifestyle, taking on a new challenge. As you've adapted into the back half of your 20s and kind of starting that new season of life, have you noticed that there is sometimes that anxiety of starting something new, and like, how do you cope with that?
Well, I mean, you're always going to end up having anxiety throughout life.
Right.
But when I start something new, like this podcast, like I was really nervous, but I was actually really excited to get to share. And I was thinking positively about it. I was 100% sure if it's going to go well or if it's going to go bad, but I was thinking, this is going to be fun. It's a new experience. Right. I was thinking about the positives. And when so I got a job at GameStop.
Oh, cool.
And I was thinking at the time, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. I love video games. I love this stuff. I went into the job. Oh, I know this sounds negative, but I ended up hating it.
Sure.
But at the time, I was so happy because I just looked at it as a positive experience because I was thinking I'm doing something that I love doing. Yes. Being around something I love doing.
You found the positives.
I that's how I transitioned my mind, was that from when I was young to growing up to about 26 years old, I always thought negatively about everything. I always was a downer, like that. But when I met my girlfriend, I turned my life around and I just started thinking positively about stuff. Yeah. And the more positive and positive and positive, I think, like the universe, like, I don't know if this is a true thing, but it's like the more you put into the universe that's positive, the more the universe gives back that's positive.
I think that's generally true.
And a big part of that, too, I think, has to do with your self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
right? So the way that we think influences our behavior. So if I go into a situation optimistic, then that's going to improve my performance. Like, I was actually just talking to Laura, my girlfriend, about this because we were watching the U.S. women's soccer. They won, by the way, World Cup, number 4.
Great.
So, fuck off. I thought it was exciting. All right? It's amazing. It's good. Anyway.
Oh, that was great.
You know what? That is I learned that bit of humor from Jacob on ICS. Because,
Thank you, Jacob.
That's my favorite Jacob joke is whenever somebody's really enthusiastic and he just goes, great. And then he just like pivots into another direction.
Okay.
And I just always crack up when he does it.
I'm going to continue my story anyway. we were talking about.
I'm even excited about them winning.
We were,
I'm actually even happy about it.
we were talking about confidence, and I was talking to her about, like, I think it was Michael Jordan who was talking about that when he shoots free throws.
Okay.
It's like he has that visual representation that he will shoot it.
Yep.
And he's like, when I step into the line, I know I'm going to make it because I already did.
Oh, okay.
In my mind, I already made it.
That's what happens when I play in hockey. When I shoot, I'm confident about when I'm shooting, and I score. I'm one of the top scorers on. I know we're only on Monday and Wednesday night teams, but I also play Tuesday and Thursday as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And on all 4 of my teams, I'm one of the top point getters, if not the number 1 point getter on every single one of my teams.
It's because you're imagining it going through.
I'm that confident about when I'm playing hockey, because that's the one thing I've been doing since I was a kid.
Yeah.
That I just know is
you feel good
I
about
shoot,
it.
I know I'm scoring.
The follow through is there.
Yeah.
So
And
Nick, were you like confident it was going to hit the wall? Like, were you just like, I'm going to miss this net?
So
by
anyway,
a
Brandon
mile.
Couldn't help himself.
So Brandon,
Couldn't help himself.
but that's like the whole purpose, though. Like, too, is like when you go in there and you have confidence, it changes how you shoot.
It does.
As opposed to going in there like, God, I hope this is a good one. Then you're not. Your shot is just different,
Right.
and it's the same way in life.
Because when I'm doing a bad angle shot, I'm usually maybe not confident about it, and it never scores. It never
Right.
scores. But there will be those times when I have a bad angle shot and I am really confident, and boom, it'll score. Like in that championship game, if you remember off that face-off, I got it. I was literally on the goal line,
Right.
and I shot and scored.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I think this goes back to the point, though. So to the writer, who's talking about their anxiety, starting something new, I think what Brandon's teaching you is visualize success, right? Just visualize a positive day. Visualize a positive year. Imagine it like it's already happened, like you're thinking historically about it. And then live into it, man. Live into it. And listen, every day is going to have its own trouble. Yes, you're going to have to learn a new trade. Yes, there's going to be a lot more here. And just a quick side note to that point. I think anybody who spent 14 years in one entire profession and is now transitioning to another profession, there's going to be reasons for that. Could be physical. Could be, hey, 14 years of kneading, bodies with my knuckles is hurting, and maybe I can't do that anymore. Or maybe, the phone's not ringing as much as it used to, and maybe it's time for me to find something new. I think that we have to be really careful about the story we mentally tell ourselves when we're transitioning, and I just want you to guard against that. This has nothing to do with your identity, okay? What you do for a living is just how you make paper so that you can pay the rent. That is all it is.
Yep.
Who you are as a human being is different than that, and no matter what, having to transition to this, it does not speak to you.
I've had people that I work with, they get very angry with me because I always say that my work is the least important part of my life.
Yeah. I love that.
Like I'm
Yeah.
good at it. I'm good at what I do. I take
Right.
it seriously. I do it well. All of that stuff. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's the least important part of my life.
It's not my identity.
Yeah,
It's not
my
who
family,
I
my
am.
friends, like all the people that I love, the things that I like to do.
Yes.
It's all more important than what I do
Well
to
said.
make my living.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
agree.
totally true. And I remember telling my wife that at one point, 'cause she was like, if you, flunk out of this whole therapy thing, which, jury's still out. We'll see what happens. I was like, woman, I could dig ditches.
We even see we see which direction. It's
Yeah,
going.
it's on the downward spin.
Yeah.
But but I could dig ditches, and like, who cares, man? It's not who I am. That's just what I do to make paper. Like, it's nothing. So, to the writer, I want to make sure that you don't, accidentally conflate your identity with this. That would be a mistake.
And I'll tell you, I've had one gig in particular comes to mind where I was the sound designer for a big show. This is a big time show that everyone has heard of, all this kind of stuff, and it was miserable dealing with the producers on this show. It was absolutely miserable. Every day, it was just a fight. It was something was
Matt
going
and
on
Mattingly's
every
Ice
day.
Cream Social.
It was Matt and Mattingly's Ice Cream Social.
Jesus.
But there was a particular producer on this show that we just butted heads from the very first meeting. He and I just we didn't get along. Every day going into this gig was just a misery. And then one day I got up one day. I was like, this fucking sucks. This is making me fucking hate everybody. I'm an asshole to be around right now. This is shitty. And I just decided that day, it's like, I'm gonna go in today and I'm gonna have a good day.
Right.
I'm just fuck this guy. Fuck
Yeah.
this,
Don't
fuck
let
this gig.
him control how you feel.
And it wasn't just
Yep.
him, but he was a large part of it.
Sure.
I was like, I'm going to go in. I'm going to have a good day.
Yep.
And from then on, I was fine.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's
The
amazing.
gig didn't change.
Yes.
Nothing in it changed. I was just like, this is, I'm done. I'm done being pissed off about this. I'm going to go in. We're going to do the gig. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's going to be fine.
You hit a different mental state, man. I mean, there's something that
And that TV show is still on the air.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm sure. But, happiness is a choice. Happiness is, in a lot of ways, a state of mind. And that's not to make it overly simple. It's not to laugh in the face of anybody who's suffering.
Yeah.
But happiness is more of a choice than you realize.
And it's not optimism.
No.
It's not optimism. It's not going in like,
it's all going to work
I
out.
believe I'm going to have a good day today.
No. You walk in and go, this could be horrible. All these humans are terrible people.
It's not, I'm going to have a good day. It's just, I'm going to be fine.
I'm going to be okay.
I'm going to be in a good mood about it. Yeah. This is going to be fine.
So there's actually a lot of research.
No big fucking deal.
Yes.
There's a lot of research that supports this. And this is, there was, oh God, I forget the guy's name, but he was a pilot in Vietnam. He was captured by Vietnam. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to look this up. No.
Herbert.
That's what I was thinking.
But
his name was Herbert.
But,
that was the guy.
He kind of started this whole philosophical idea of being a prisoner of war.
Yeah.
And he was a prisoner of war for, I want to say like 4 years.
Right.
And he was tortured every single day.
Yep.
But how he got through it is he got through it by watching other people and understanding how their thought process caused them more pain.
Yes.
Because they were always going into the day thinking like, okay, it's going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. Everything's going to go really well. And then they wouldn't make it. They would crack.
Yeah.
But what he would do is he would go in every day saying, okay, my leg's probably going to get broken today.
Yep.
But I'm going to get through it.
Yep. I'm going to be okay.
That was his mindset. And he went 4 years.
This is going to suck.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And,
he's like, this is
get
going to
through it.
suck, but I can get through
but
this.
I'm going to be okay.
Yep.
And he went 4 years
David,
being
please
tortured
speaking.
every
Sorry.
day, never giving up a government
God
secret.
won't ever put you through anything you can't handle.
There you go. Just that sense of wellness that you're going to, endure. What's interesting, too, is it actually goes back even deeper in that Vietnam story. It goes back to logotherapy. It goes back to man's search for meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Victor Frankl.
Victor Frankl.
Yeah, Victor Frankl talked
and
about that.
you sit around with little plastic bricks and build interesting things out of it?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about?
Yeah. That's
Lego therapy?
Lego therapy.
Yeah.
You're practically a therapist.
He's got it. He's got it.
I feel like I've been around enough. You know what? Is it a mail-in thing for the license? How does this work?
It's not. You know what? It's fine. Nick can just wave his fingers and give you one right now.
You can print your own. Like,
well, it's like a dog surgery.
I feel like that's more true than it's not.
Sadly,
It might
yes.
be.
We just have to
more
make
truth
you,
than that
as long
than
as we make you like a crystals therapist or something, it's fine. It's fine. Nobody can question that.
You can only work with people named Crystal.
That's right.
all right. Well, let's. We got one more commercial we got to do.
And then we'll jump into announcements.
All right. So,
This week's Their Producer sponsor is Jake Schneider. Jake Schneider was a British writer best known for his detective fiction featuring the character Sherlock Holmes. Originally a physician, in 1887 he published A Study in Scarlet, the first of 4 novels, and more than 50 short stories about Holmes and Dr. Watson. The Sherlock Holmes stories are generally considered milestones in the field of crime fiction. If you'd like to join Jake Schneider, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. It's time to go into apologies, Patreon reviews, and announcements.
I'd like to apologize to anybody shaken up by the earthquake for mocking you, because that's not something to joke about.
Yeah,
But
that was my first earthquake I've ever experienced. And the night before, my family was contacting me and they're like, "Did you feel it?
Are you okay?"
And I was like, "No, I didn't feel anything." And I'm like, I really wanted to experience one.
Yeah.
And then I did. And I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, that was great. Never again.
That was creepy.
That was nothing compared to the one in what we felt here in Vegas was nothing compared to the one I felt in California in '94.
Oh, I'm
really?
sure.
Yeah, I was just a little 4-year-old boy when I still remember it. The stuff, everything just falling down, shaking.
Oh yeah,
that was crazy.
This was nothing. Like people.
Oh yeah.
Like
No.
knob,
This
like
I
back
was
and forth.
sitting in my computer chair and it was just like
Oh, yeah.
This is fun.
Oh, my
I realized that what I experienced was kind of like somebody who experienced a dusting of snow and said that they survived a blizzard.
Right.
It was very minor, but just that feeling was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't really care for this. That's enough. I never need to do it again.
It's not fun.
No, it was super unpleasant.
Yeah.
My favorite tweet, though, so like when the emergency happened, it's telling of our times that here are, we're like, oh my gosh, shaken up, scared, like we have kids and we're worried. And so like we don't go on the radio, we don't turn on the local news. I went straight to Twitter. Right. So like that's where I'm going to find out what's going on. And of course there was that doctor who's like a geologist, and it like immediately was a live feed of her like with a live map explaining what has just happened. It was incredible. But my favorite tweet that showed up randomly was Assemblyman Steve Yeager. And he said, we didn't have earthquakes in Las Vegas when Barack Obama was president.
Yeah. I did see that.
It's just like, oh, yeah, he just
that
won.
Was funny.
He just
Fair
won
enough.
the internet. It's pretty solid. But anyway, to all those who survived the earthquake, we will rebuild. I'm glad to see the studio's still here, Jacob. I'm sure you had a lot of dust to sweep off the table. A lot of putting things back together again.
Yeah.
We do want to thank our Patreons. We want to thank those who support the show at patreon.com/therapy. And again, if you don't, today's the day. Get in there and drop a buck, man, because that pregame show was really fun. We do have some new THERAPALs to thank. We want to thank new THERAPAL Katie and new THERAPAL Keith Whitmire.
And we got 2 new THERAPODs this week, James Cole and Kenneth Soto.
Love having you guys aboard, and we want to thank especially our bosses, the Elite Eight, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of our fan club, the TheraProducers. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, a.k.a. Descartes, Jake Schneider, a.k.a., who is it? Oliver Wendell Holmes.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
That guy!
Got it.
Yeah, nailed it. He wins the bonus prize. Robert Browning.
He had, like, crazy theories about something, too.
Oh, yeah. I think, he did, didn't he? He was, like, a little bit out there when it came to, like, conspiracy
He was
stuff.
like a flat Earth guy or something.
Oh, really?
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, I keep hearing about the flat Earth thing popping up. I'm like, what are you guys talking
Yeah,
about?
that's geography, guys. We'll talk about it.
Oh, no, I think he was... I think he was the one... I think he and Houdini actually fought. Because he was a big spiritualism...
Oh, wow.
Like, back from the dead guy.
Oh, they like ancestor stuff or something?
Yeah. He was a big,
wow.
like, seance guy, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know what? That actually does show up in a lot of the novels, too.
There was stuff later on that I remember him saying that...
Which is so interesting, because his character's all about deductive reasoning and logic.
Later in life, he talked about how he wished that he would not be known for writing the Sherlock Holmes books, that he wanted to be known for like his forays into all that stuff.
You know, it's interesting, because I am not known for writing the Sherlock Holmes books, but I would prefer that.
To be known for writing the Sherlock Holmes
books? Yeah, great. Nice try. You can't deliver like I do. We want to thank Robert Brownie Jr. Mint. We want to thank Kayla Lansbury, David Data Scoop Violon, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Don, and ex officio board member Ellie O'Dare.
If you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, including book club, go to www.patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to Brandon for contributing to our show today. We really appreciated it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by opening this episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter at PodTherapyGuys, and now at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm a good hockey player.
I'm laughing.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.